On April 12, 1961, our entire relationship with the universe changed in a flash. One man, Yuri Gagarin, strapped himself into a tiny metal ball, shot into the great unknown, and became the very first human to leave our planet. But his story, man, it's so much bigger than just that one flight. So let's get into the incredible life and the very mysterious death of this absolute legend.
Right at the moment of liftoff, with the world holding its breath, he didn't give some grand prepared speech. He just said, "Poyachali, off we go." It was so simple, so informal. It was the call of a pilot, an adventurer, just ready to go. And that one phrase, right there, became the unofficial slogan for the entire space age. Just perfect.
And here's something that might surprise you. The man chosen for this gigantic leap for mankind was, well, not a giant at all. He stood just 5 feet 2 inches tall. And that small stature, it was actually a key requirement to even fit inside the cramped Vostok capsule. It's a little detail, but it just makes this larger-than-life hero feel incredibly real, you know?
All right, so let's dive right into that moment, the one that made him a household name across the entire globe.
This is it, the big one. On that day, inside the Vostok 1, he did a single orbit of Earth, a feat that absolutely electrified the world and handed the Soviet Union a massive, massive victory in the high-stakes space race.
The achievement is just monumental, right? But the story of the man himself is, I think, even more remarkable. To really get the flight, you have to get the man, and his beginnings were about as far away from the cosmos as you could possibly get.
Seriously, his journey starts on a collective farm, literally a world away from the stars that he would one day visit.
Take a look at this. This simple wooden house, this was his world. Born in 1934 in a tiny village, his dad was a carpenter, his mom a dairy farmer. This wasn't just a home. It was the starting line for one of the most unbelievable journeys in all of human history.
And his childhood was just brutal. I mean, during the Nazi occupation, a German officer just took their house, forced the entire Gagarin family to dig a 10 by 10 foot mud hut in their own backyard and live in it for almost 2 years. It's just such a stark contrast to the global fame that was waiting for him down the road.
And look at this progression. It's just a truly meteoric rise. In just a handful of years, he goes from being a foundryman in a steel plant, manual labor, to an elite military pilot. Every single step was just fueled by this incredible drive to break free from where he started and literally reach for the sky.
But, you know, becoming a pilot is one thing. Becoming the first person in space, that was a whole different level of challenge.
The Vostok program had these incredibly strict rules. You had to be young, you had to be light, and you had to be short. Gagarin, at 27 and just 1.57 meters, he fit the bill perfectly. But here's the real kicker. When all 20 of the final candidates were asked to anonymously vote on who they thought should be the first to go, all but 3 of them chose Gagarin. His own peers knew. They knew he was the one. The training they went through was absolutely designed to break them. We're talking Olympic-level physical conditioning, day in and day out. Dozens of high-altitude parachute jumps. And then the psychological stuff, getting locked in an isolation chamber while they slowly suck the oxygen out, or getting spun in a centrifuge until you're about to pass out. Just brutal. And through all of that, his personality just shone. This is from an official psychological evaluation in 1960. It paints this picture of a man who wasn't just tough, but he was smart, he was determined, and he was perceptive. He really was the whole package. In all that work, all that determination, it all came down to a single flight that would make him immortal. So check this out. This tiny little sphere, this is what he flew in. There was barely enough room for one person inside. Now at the time, this was the absolute peak of technology. But let's be real, by today's standards, this was an incredibly risky piece of hardware. His entire historic mission, from the moment of liftoff to the moment he landed, lasted just 108 minutes. Think about that. Less than 2 hours. But in those 108 minutes, he circled the entire planet, saw it in a way no human ever had, and completely changed the game for human exploration forever. The second he was back on solid ground, his life was just not his own anymore. Overnight, he went from an Air Force pilot to a global icon. He was the face of Soviet power, a national hero with massive parades in his honor, and a worldwide celebrity who toured the globe. But that kind of fame, that global celebrity, well, it came with a catch. A big one.
He basically became a hero trapped in a gilded cage. The Soviet state was absolutely terrified of losing their greatest symbol, so they banned him from ever going to space again. For a pilot, a guy who lived to fly, this was just devastating. He was grounded, paraded around, but he couldn't do the one thing he loved. The psychological toll was huge, and it all led to the tragedy of the Soyuz 1 mission. He was the backup pilot, and he had to listen from mission control as his close friend died in a flawed spacecraft, a mission Gagarin himself might have flown if he wasn't considered too valuable to risk.
Gagarin fought like hell to fly again, but his return to the cockpit would tragically lead to the final chapter of his story.
Yeah, just 7 years after that historic flight, at only 34 years old, Yuri Gagarin was killed during a routine training flight. The death of a national hero, immediately shrouded in state secrecy, well, it kicked off decades of questions and conspiracy theories.
This is the type of jet he was in, a MiG-15 trainer. It was a reliable workhorse of a plane. So for the world's most famous pilot to die in a simple training run, for a lot of people, it just didn't add up.
And the theories about what really happened have been swirling for decades, each one adding another layer of mystery. The first official story was that he swerved to avoid a weather balloon. Simple, clean, but over the years, as files were declassified, new stories emerged. Everything from bad weather data, to a cabin vent being left open, to a terrifying near miss with another supersonic jet that sent his plane into a fatal spin. The truth is, we still don't know for sure.
In death, just as in life, he remained a powerful symbol of the state. His ashes were interred in the Kremlin wall, which is the highest honor a Soviet citizen could receive. His place in the pantheon of national heroes was, quite literally, set in stone.
So what do we make of Yuri Gagarin? He was, without a doubt, a hero, a true pioneer whose courage opened up the cosmos for all of us. But when you look at the whole story, the brutal training, that gilded cage of fame, his tragic and still mysterious death, you can't help but ask, was he just a hero of a powerful nation, or was he also a victim of the very same ambition that shot him to the stars?